Sign the papers, Daniel. You're worthless to me, and I refuse to waste another day with a broke man. Amelia's voice dripped with contempt as she shoved the envelope across the table, her lover smirking beside her. You'll never be enough for me. I regret marrying you, you're nothing, and I'm done. What she didn't know was that the man she mocked as useless was the silent CEO of a billion-dollar empire. 30 days later, headlines screamed the truth. Daniel had unlocked a $200 million inheritance, and the woman who called him worthless had lost the only man who ever loved her. Viewers, have you ever seen someone burn the only bridge that could have saved them? Would you call silence in betrayal weakness, or the sharpest weapon of all? Unaware her husband was a billionaire CEO with a $200 million inheritance waiting to be unlocked, Amelia signed the divorce papers and mocked him as worthless. But when the truth hit the headlines just a month later, her world collapsed in shame. Viewers, what would you do if the person you abandoned turned out to be the one holding the fortune of your dreams? And how do you measure a person's true worth, by money, or by loyalty? Rain drummed against the thin walls of the Parker Whitmore townhouse, a rented corner unit in a middle-class neighborhood that smelled faintly of damp carpet and cheap takeout. The kitchen light flickered overhead as Amelia sat in her silk robe at the table, scrolling through her phone with a glass of red wine balanced beside her. She was 32, strikingly beautiful, and restless. Her manicured nails tapped impatiently on the screen as she studied photos of friends boarding planes, posing in Dubai hotels, wrapped in luxury she felt she deserved. Daniel Whitmore, her husband of 10 years, slipped in quietly from the rain with groceries under one arm. His work jacket was damp, his back stiff from an old warehouse injury. To the world, he was a logistics supervisor earning an ordinary wage. To Amelia, he was a disappointment, a man with no drive. She didn't even look up. Late again. Of course. Her voice was sharp, dripping with contempt. Daniel set the bag down, steadying himself against the counter. I stayed to cover an extra shift. Manny's kid is sick. He needed to go. Amelia laughed bitterly. You're always covering someone. You can't even cover this family. Clara's husband just took her to Paris. And me? I'm boiling noodles with a broke man who can't fix his own back. Tell me, Daniel, what kind of man are you? Daniel's jaw tightened. He said nothing. His silence had become a shield, though it only fed her scorn. Upstairs, their twins, Maya and Miles, sat in their room with Nanny Celeste, a woman whose stern face and cold manner had never warmed Daniel's heart. The children's legs dangled awkwardly, their steps often clumsy, their laughter faint. Doctors suggested physical therapy, but Celeste insisted nothing would help. Some children just don't walk right, she told Amelia, her voice flat, as though she were sealing their fate. But Daniel noticed things, how their pupils seemed glazed, how they slurred after drinking from their cups. Tonight, as he passed the nursery, he froze at the sight of Celeste drawing a syringe from her purse. His pulse thundered. She poured the liquid into the twins' juice, whispering, "This will keep you quiet." Daniel stepped into the doorway. "What's that?" Celeste spun, clutching the cup. "Vitamins. They need extra supplements." His eyes narrowed. Without a word, he walked past her, dumped both cups in the sink, and turned back. "No more tonight." Her lips thinned, but she didn't protest. Still, Daniel knew he had to watch. That night, while Amelia dressed in her best perfume for another girls' dinner, he mounted a nanny cam above the bookshelf. The sticker on it was clear, "This area under recording." No one could claim ignorance. Meanwhile, Amelia's dinner ended at a candlelit cafe. Across from her sat Richard Hale, Daniel's old friend and accountant. Richard's suit was tailored, his cologne expensive, his smile sharp. Amelia leaned closer, her fingers grazing his. "He's finished, Richard. His back's shot, his paycheck pathetic. I can't live like this. When he's gone, I'll inherit whatever scraps he leaves." But you, she whispered, her lips brushing his knuckles, you're the man I deserve. Richard smirked. Then let's make it official. Divorce him. You'll get something. Maybe more than you think. Amelia's laugh was low, conspiratorial. He's too stupid to hide anything. But across the street, inside a rain-smeared car, Daniel sat in the shadows. He had followed her quietly, the glow of his phone screen reflecting in his eyes as the nannycam feed recorded upstairs. He watched through the cafe window as his wife leaned into the man he once called brother. A dull ache spread in his chest, but beneath it grew something sharper, resolve. Betrayal didn't crush him. It forged him. And as thunder split the night sky, Daniel knew Amelia's cruelty and Richard's treachery had lit the fuse for a revenge neither of them would see coming. The storm had passed by morning, but the air inside the townhouse was heavier than ever. Daniel sat at the dining table, his back straight, a heating pad tucked beneath his shirt. Across from him, Amelia flipped through a thick envelope of papers. Her lipstick was perfect, her hair freshly styled, as though she had dressed not for her husband but for the performance of leaving him. You'll need to sign here, here, and here, she said coldly, tapping the page with a manicured nail. My lawyer says this is the fastest way. No drawn-out discovery. No endless court battles. It's better for everyone if you just let go. Daniel studied her face. 10 years ago, when he married her, Amelia's smile had lit up his world. Now it was sharp, practiced, and hollow. He didn't reach for the pen immediately. Why the rush, Amelia? His voice was steady, but his eyes searched hers. She smirked. Because I can't waste another year of my life waiting for you to make something of yourself. Richard's right. You've become dead weight. And I refuse to drown with you. Richard's name hung in the air like poison. Daniel didn't flinch. He took the pen, let it hover over the paper. No discovery. That means you don't want to know what I actually have. Amelia's laugh was sharp. What could you possibly have? A half-broken back and a salary that barely covers rent? Please. If you think you're hiding money, I'd know. Richard's seen your books. Daniel signed. Each stroke of the pen was deliberate, controlled. In Amelia's eyes, it looked like surrender. But Daniel knew the truth. She had just waived her right to uncover the holdings, the trust, the fortune that would become his alone in less than a month. She slid the papers into the manila envelope, her expression triumphant. At least you didn't embarrass yourself by fighting me. I'll always give you that much. He met her gaze, his voice soft but edged. You'll regret this. Her laughter followed him as he stood. I already regret marrying you. The next week unfolded like a cruel theater. Amelia paraded through social gatherings on Richard's arm, her diamond bracelet flashing under chandeliers Daniel had once paid for quietly. She whispered to friends that Daniel was crippled and useless, painting him as a man she had carried until she couldn't anymore. Meanwhile, Daniel returned to the warehouse each day, blending into the rhythm of forklifts and schedules, his secret untouched. At night, he watched the nannycam footage. Celeste's syringes appeared again and again, her whispers to the children chilling in their quiet command. It wasn't just betrayal by a wife and a friend, it was danger within his own home. He made calls quietly, not as Daniel the shift worker, but as Whitmore Holdings managing partner. Legal counsel, child services, investigators, threads were being pulled, each one leading toward an inevitable reckoning. One evening, Amelia returned briefly to collect her things. She strutted past him in heels, her perfume filling the room. Richard's moving me into his condo. Penthouse view. Real champagne. Everything you couldn't give me. Daniel leaned against the doorframe, his expression unreadable. Enjoy it while it lasts. She sneered. Don't worry, I will. You'll be a footnote in my story. He let her go. But as the door shut behind her, Daniel whispered to himself, a vow more than a threat. No, Amelia. You'll be the lesson in mine. The city skyline glittered outside Richard Hale's penthouse, but inside, tension simmered like a pot left too long on the stove. Amelia stood barefoot on the marble floor, clutching her phone, her voice rising. You said leaving Daniel was the smartest move of my life. You promised me freedom. Look at me, Richard, I'm pregnant, exhausted, and you barely come home anymore. Richard leaned back in his leather chair, swirling whiskey in his glass. His sharp suit and cold eyes made him look more like a predator than a partner. Don't forget who pays for this view. You wanted luxury, Amelia, you've got it. But don't mistake comfort for love. She flinched. For the first time, the words cut deeper than Daniel's silence ever had. Her hands instinctively covered her belly, a small swell visible now under her silk blouse. This is your child, Richard. Our future. He smirked, sipping slowly. Is it? Or are you sure it's not Daniel's? The slap she delivered echoed through the room. Richard's smile only widened. He snatched her phone from her hand and scrolled through her messages. What a treasure trove, he muttered. These little notes you used to send me. Hubby will raise the child. Bold. If Daniel ever saw these, you'd be ruined. She reached for the phone, panic flaring. Give it back. Richard strolled toward the balcony, opened the glass door, and with a sudden flick of his wrist, hurled the phone into the storm-dark sky. Amelia screamed, rushing after him, just in time to see the device arc downward, only to snag miraculously in the branches of a tall jacaranda tree near the property line. You bastard, she cried, shoving him. That phone has everything. Richard laughed, cruel and careless. Then go climb for it, Amelia. Prove you're as desperate as you look. Rain began to fall, sharp and cold. Without hesitation, she ran outside, her bare feet slipping on wet grass, her heart hammering. The phone glinted faintly in the branches, too high for her to reach. Ignoring the pain in her swollen ankles, she gripped the rough bark and hauled herself upward, rain soaking her hair and robe. Neighbors gathered below, filming with their phones as the pregnant woman clawed her way up the tree, cursing Richard's name. One shouted, "Careful. You'll fall." Another whispered, "That's Hale's mistress." What is she doing? Amelia grabbed the phone at last, clutching it to her chest like a lifeline. She scrambled down, drenched, trembling, but triumphant. Inside, Richard sneered, unimpressed. Keep it, then. Doesn't change who owns you. What neither of them realized was that the neighbors' videos, uploaded within minutes, would later become key evidence. The image of Amelia climbing a tree in the rain, pregnant and desperate, with her phone flashing like treasure in her hand, was burned into the public's mind. Hours later, labor pains seized her. She begged Richard to take her to the hospital. Instead, he called his mistress into the condo, poured another drink, and told Amelia coldly, "Take a cab. I'm busy." Staggering into the storm again, Amelia flagged down a taxi, clutching her belly with one arm and her salvaged phone with the other. The driver's eyes widened at her soaked clothes, her twisted face of pain. "Hold on, ma'am. I'll get you there." Through the agony, Amelia whispered bitterly, Daniel would never have done this. But Daniel wasn't there. He was at home, watching more nannycam footage, his face pale as Celeste once again slipped a syringe into his children's drinks. His betrayal was layered, wife, friend, caretaker, and the fire of revenge inside him burned brighter with every passing night. The shelter smelled of damp wool and hot soup, but inside there was warmth, a different kind of wealth than marble floors and chandeliers. Daniel Whitmore stood in the corner, sleeves rolled, serving bowls of stew to a line of tired faces. Few here knew his real name. To them he was just Mr. Dan, a soft-spoken volunteer who paid for meals when donations ran low. That afternoon, as he ladled soup into the bowl of a thin boy in a torn hoodie, his eyes caught on something glinting at the boy's chest. A silver locket, oval-shaped, etched with the initials A.P. Daniel's breath caught. He knew that locket, Amelia's. Years ago, she had pawned it in a fit of rage after he forgot an anniversary. Quietly, Daniel had bought it back, holding on to it as a reminder of what he was fighting for. How had it ended up here? The boy, Deli, noticed his stare and clutched the locket protectively. "It's mine. A man gave it to me. Said it was lucky." Daniel crouched to meet his eyes. "What man?" "Mr. Whitmore," Deli said simply. "He helps us. Bought us food, gave me this. Said it belonged to someone who forgot its value." Daniel's chest tightened. Amelia must have told people she pawned it. Now fate had dropped it back into his orbit through a child who knew nothing of the wars inside his home. That same week, another storm gathered, not in the sky but in the city's heart. At the charity clinic Daniel quietly funded, a frail woman collapsed in the waiting room, gasping for air. Panic rippled through the crowd until a wiry homeless man, Teo, rushed forward. His hands were steady as he performed chest compressions, his voice calm as he called for oxygen. By the time paramedics arrived, the woman was breathing again, color returning to her cheeks. She gripped Teo's hand, whispering, "You saved me." But she wasn't just any patient. She was Eleanor Lennox, a billionaire philanthropist whose family name graced half the city's hospitals and libraries. Within days, the story spread, a homeless man saving a wealthy woman in a clinic run by an anonymous benefactor. Mrs. Lennox demanded to meet the man funding the center. When she sat across from Daniel in her wheelchair days later, her eyes sharp and discerning, she said, "You keep your name hidden, Mr. Whitmore." "Why?" Daniel offered a small smile. "Because loyalty isn't tested in public. It's tested when no one's watching." She studied him for a long moment before nodding. "Then let me watch with you. I'll fund your expansion. Children deserve more than scraps." Back in Richard's penthouse, Amelia scrolled through her phone with trembling fingers. The neighbor's video of her climbing the jacaranda tree had gone viral, captioned, "Mistress risks baby for phone." The comments were vicious, some mocking, others pitying. But one detail she noticed chilled her blood. Deli, the boy she had once ignored outside the shelter, was shown in a photo holding her old locket. And in the caption, someone had written, "Mr. Whitmore gave this to him." Her wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the tile. "Mr. Whitmore," she whispered. The name rang in her head like thunder. Could it be? No, Daniel was just a supervisor, a crippled man she'd cast aside. Wasn't he? For the first time, doubt crept in. For the first time, Amelia felt the weight of what she might have truly lost. The morning headlines hit the city like a lightning strike. Whitmore Holdings injects $200 million into new logistics fund. The article spread across every financial network. Daniel Whitmore, previously unseen in corporate circles, had assumed full control of his late father's holdings after his 35th birthday triggered the release of a long-standing trust. Investors praised his quiet strategy, analysts dissected his low-profile brilliance, and suddenly the man the world had ignored was being called the invisible CEO who outsmarted everyone. In her penthouse, Amelia stared at the television, her coffee untouched, her hands trembling. The anchor's words pierced like knives. Whitmore Holdings, long rumored to be managed by anonymous trustees, is now led directly by Daniel Whitmore. Sources confirm his net worth exceeds $200 million, with controlling interest in several subsidiary companies across the region. Her throat went dry. Daniel. Her Daniel. The man she had mocked, abandoned, divorced. The man she had called worthless. Richard walked in, nodding his tie, his expression annoyed at the sound of Daniel's name echoing through the room. "Turn that off. Nobody cares about him." Amelia spun on him, eyes blazing. "Nobody cares. He's worth $200 million. He's the CEO of Whitmore Holdings. Do you understand what that means? Richard's jaw tightened. For the first time, uncertainty flickered across his face. Impossible. He was nothing. No, Amelia whispered, sinking into the couch, her voice breaking. I was nothing. He was everything, and I signed it away. Her mind reeled back to the divorce papers, the quick settlement her lawyer had rushed her through. No discovery. No chance to dig. She had laughed at Daniel's calm silence, thinking it meant defeat. Now she saw the truth, it had been strategy. He had let her walk away blind. Richard snapped, "Stop crying over him. You chose me." Amelia's voice rose, raw and bitter. I chose a liar who threw me out in labor, who mocked me, who left me to climb a tree for proof while the world laughed at me. I gave up a man who stayed silent because he had nothing to prove. I gave up a fortune, Richard. I gave up my life. Across town, Daniel stood in a gleaming boardroom, the skyline stretching behind him. Men and women in tailored suits leaned forward as he outlined his new logistics fund, his voice calm, confident, every inch the leader they now realized he had always been. His children's drawings were pinned discreetly to his leather folio, a private reminder of what truly mattered. But beneath the composure was steel. He remembered Amelia's laughter, her venom, her betrayal with Richard. He remembered Celeste's syringes, Richard's smirk across the cafe table, Amelia's hand resting on another man's. Now, the world saw him. And he would use that visibility not only to grow his empire, but to deliver a revenge neither Amelia nor Richard would escape. Back in the penthouse, Amelia clutched her phone, scrolling desperately through her photos of Daniel, through old messages she had once ignored. Her tears smeared the screen. I left a billionaire, she whispered to herself. I left the only man who ever loved me. The penthouse no longer felt like a prize. Its glass walls only reflected Amelia's shame back at her. She sat hunched on the couch, clutching her salvaged phone, the one she had nearly lost to the jacaranda tree. The neighbor's storm video was still there, time-stamped and clear, along with every cruel text she had sent to Richard, every whispered plan she had once thought clever. Hubby will raise the child. He's too stupid to hide anything. Now those words burned like iron against her skin. Richard stormed in late, reeking of whiskey and perfume. He tossed his keys onto the marble counter and loosened his tie. Why are you sulking again? You should be celebrating, your ex turned out rich. Maybe he'll send you flowers. Amelia rose, her eyes red, but her voice steady. He'll never forgive me, Richard. And he shouldn't. But you, she held up the phone, her knuckles white, you stole from him. From me. From everyone. I have proof. He froze, then laughed coldly. Proof of what? That you cheated? That you called your husband worthless? That you sold yourself to me? That's what those texts show, Amelia. Not my sins, yours. But she didn't flinch this time. The neighbors filmed me climbing that tree. Everyone saw. They know you through my phone. And this, she unlocked the screen, showing him bank statements she had quietly forwarded before he could delete them. This shows you forged Daniel's signature on that power of attorney. You siphoned money from his accounts while he was in recovery. I sent it to a lawyer today. Richard lunged, ripping the phone from her hands. You little fool. But Amelia smiled bitterly. I backed it up. To the cloud. To my lawyer. To Daniel, too. His face darkened, his hands trembling with rage. For the first time, the predator looked cornered. 2 weeks later, Daniel sat across from his private investigator in a quiet office, a stack of files spread before him. The PI's tone was brisk, professional. Forgery on the power of attorney. Unauthorized transfers. Offshore accounts. And texts from Hale to brokers boasting about it. Ironclad, Mr. Whitmore. Police will have no trouble. Daniel leaned back, his hands steepled. He should have felt vindication, but what he felt was colder, something calculated, controlled. Make sure Amelia's name is clean. She will face her own consequences with me, not the courts. But Richard, Daniel's voice dropped, his eyes like steel. Richard goes down hard. Public, humiliating, irreversible. The arrest came on a Tuesday morning. Police stormed the penthouse as Richard barked and cursed, cameras flashing as he was dragged out in handcuffs. Reporters shouted questions. Richard Hale, did you forge documents? Did you steal from Whitmore Holdings? His mistress slipped away into a waiting car, her face pale. From her window, Amelia watched the scene unfold, her heart pounding. For the first time since signing those papers, she felt a strange mix of relief and dread. She had helped bring Richard down, but she knew Daniel's silence was not mercy, it was strategy. And strategy meant the worst was yet to come. That night, as she tucked her newborn into a crib she had bought secondhand, Amelia whispered into the darkness, Daniel. I don't deserve forgiveness. But God, please, don't let him hate our children because of me. Across the city, Daniel poured himself a glass of water in his new office, the skyline glittering outside. On his desk lay Amelia's texts, Richard's bank logs, and a single photograph from years ago, Amelia smiling in a sundress, before contempt had hardened her. He tapped the frame once, then set it face down. Justice is only the beginning, he murmured. The real revenge starts when she sees what she lost forever. The sound of children's laughter filled the rehab center, a melody Daniel had almost forgotten. He stood near the therapy mats, his sleeves rolled up, as Maya and Miles clung to parallel bars, their small legs trembling with effort. A therapist guided them patiently, encouraging each shaky step. Come on, Maya. Just one more. You can do it, Daniel said softly, his voice breaking with quiet hope. Maya's brow furrowed in determination. She lifted her foot, wobbling, then planted it firmly. A cheer erupted from the staff. Daniel's chest swelled as tears blurred his vision. Miles, inspired by his sister, stumbled forward, clutching the bar, his grin wide despite the sweat on his forehead. Behind the one-way glass, Mrs. Lennox watched, her cane resting at her side. He funds this place and still shows up as just a father, she murmured to her assistant. That's why I trust him. The truth about the twins had unraveled weeks earlier. Child Services had confirmed Celeste had been microdosing them with sedatives. The nanny cam footage, legal because of the posted sticker, showed her whispering, "Stay quiet, stay weak." Prosecutors filed charges, and Celeste vanished into the system, disgraced. Daniel had carried the guilt for years, believing his children were simply delayed. Now, with therapy and freedom from poison, they blossomed. The doctor said walking would take time, but progress was steady. For Daniel, every step was a victory greater than any million-dollar deal. That evening, the Whitmore Foundation hosted its first gala under Daniel's public name. Investors mingled with philanthropists, champagne glasses sparkling under crystal chandeliers. The cameras clicked as Daniel entered, his children beside him in small formal outfits, their little hands clasped in his. Gasps rippled through the crowd when Maya and Miles stepped forward, wobbly but walking, across the stage toward him. Flashbulbs burst like fireworks. Reporters surged forward. Mr. Whitmore, are these your children? How did this happen? Daniel knelt, hugging his twins close. His voice was calm but firm. They've been through more than any child should. But they're stronger than anyone imagined. And tonight, they showed me something I'll never forget: wealth is nothing compared to a child's first step. The room erupted in applause. The story went viral overnight: Billionaire CEO's twins take first steps at gala. News anchors marveled, talk shows praised, social media hailed him as both brilliant and humble. Across town, Amelia scrolled through her phone in silence. The video autoplayed, showing her children, her children, walking into Daniel's arms. Her tears spilled hot and fast. She had missed it. The moment every mother dreams of, stolen by her own betrayal. Her friend messaged her, "Amelia, you must feel so proud." She typed back with shaking fingers, then deleted the words. Proud? No. Devastated. She had traded those memories for empty champagne glasses and Richard's hollow promises. In Daniel's office later that night, Mrs. Lennox handed him a signed contract. "The Lennox Foundation is with you, Daniel. You've proven you're not just building businesses, you're building lives. People trust you now." Daniel thanked her, his gaze falling on the framed gala photo of Maya and Miles taking those first steps. For the first time in years, a true smile touched his lips. But even as joy filled him, a darker thought lingered: Amelia would come crawling back. And when she did, he would be ready. The night was quiet in Daniel's townhouse, the kind of silence that spoke of peace rather than absence. Toys were scattered on the living room rug, tiny wooden trains and dolls lined neatly in rows. The twins were upstairs, asleep after another long day of therapy. Daniel sat by the window with a book, though he barely read. His mind drifted between boardroom plans and bedtime laughter. A sudden knock at the door broke the stillness. He didn't move immediately. He knew the rhythm of that knock, hesitant, guilty. When he opened the door, Amelia stood there in the porch light, her once flawless hair pulled back in disarray, her makeup streaked with tears. She wore no jewelry now, only a plain coat, and in her trembling hand she clutched an old wedding photo of the two of them smiling in better days. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice raw. "Please, don't shut me out. I was blind. I was cruel. But I see now. I know who you are. I know what you've done for the children. For everyone. Please, just, let me in." Daniel studied her for a long moment, his face unreadable. Then he stepped aside silently and gestured for her to enter. She crossed the threshold, clutching the photo to her chest like a shield. The living room felt foreign to her now, warm, alive, filled with the scent of crayons and cocoa. She sat on the edge of the couch, her hands shaking. "I was wrong about everything. You weren't worthless. You were the only man who ever truly loved me. And I threw it away for nothing. Please, Daniel, please forgive me." He lowered himself into the chair opposite her, leaning forward, his hands folded. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "Do you remember what you said the night you handed me the divorce papers?" Amelia's eyes filled with tears. I called you dead weight. I said I regretted marrying you." Daniel reached into a folder on the table and pulled out his phone. He tapped the screen, and her own voice filled the room: "Hubby will raise the child. He's too stupid to hide anything." Another clip followed: "Richard's right. You've become dead weight." Her words, cold and cruel, echoed back at her, undeniable. Her hands flew to her mouth, her sobs breaking the silence. "Daniel. I didn't know. I didn't mean." "You meant every word," he cut in sharply, though his tone remained steady. "You thought I was nothing. You thought loyalty didn't matter. And you chose Richard." Her tears dripped onto the wedding photo. "I was blind. Please, for the children." "The children will never lack love," Daniel interrupted, his voice turning cold as steel. "But you will never be part of my life again. Not as a wife. Not as a partner. What you lost, Amelia, you can't buy back with tears." She fell to her knees before him, clutching at his hand, but he gently pulled away. Standing tall, he walked to the door and opened it wide. "Leave, Amelia. The lesson is yours to live with. I won't let betrayal sit at my table again." Her cries spilled into the night as she stumbled onto the porch, clutching the photo. The door shut firmly behind her, sealing her outside in the darkness. Inside, Daniel returned to the quiet living room. Upstairs, his children stirred softly, safe in their beds. He sat down again, his jaw tight, his heart heavy but resolute. Mercy was for the innocent. Amelia had chosen her side long ago,